It's just one more way of reducing your liberty and reminding you that they can fuck with you anytime they want, as long as you put up with it. As long as you put up with it. Which means, of course, anytime they want. Because that's what Americans do now. They're always willing to trade away a little of their freedom in exchange for the feeling, the illusion of security. What we have now is a completely neurotic population obsessed with security and safety and crime and drugs and cleanliness and hygiene and germs. There's another thing. Germs. Where did this sudden fear of germs come from? In this country. Have you noticed this? The media constantly running stories about all the latest infections, salmonella, E. coli, hantavirus, bird flu, and Americans they panic easily, so now everybody's running around scrubbing this and spraying that and overcooking their food and repeatedly washing their hands, trying to avoid all contact with germs. It's ridiculous, and it goes to ridiculous lengths. Fear of germs, why these fucking pussies? Hey, where's your sense of adventure? Take a fucking chance, will you? Besides, what do you think you have an immune system for? It's for killing germs. But it needs practice. It needs germs to practice on. So listen. If you kill all the germs around you and live a completely sterile life, then when germs do come along, you're not going to be prepared. And never mind ordinary germs, what are you going to do when some super virus comes along that turns your vital organs into liquid shit? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to get sick, you're going to die, and you're going to deserve it because you're fucking weak and you got a fucking weak immune system.
Welcome back to the 7th grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about the road less traveled. We're talking about exactly having an unpopular opinion, going against the grain. There have been many examples in history of people who have done exactly that. Jesus of Nazareth, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers. A lot of people in history have gone against the grain and said things that are unpopular with and without consequences.
Don't forget Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali. Yes, of course. He was a true warrior. But see, nowadays, in the snowflake generation, you can say the slightest thing out of tune and you get the most loudest chorus from the most butthurt people in the world. Lately,
hey, what about the flip side of that, where people do things that everybody knows is wrong, but because they're rich and they're popular, people still ride their nuts, essentially. Jay-Z and the NFL thing. Everybody knows, like, hey, bro, you kind of sold out on this one. You shouldn't have gotten involved. But instead, because he's so popular, everybody's like, okay.
Well,
he's suing the prison. He's suing the prison system now. Like,
yeah.
You know what? That was about his brand. That was all about brand.
Yes.
He was more worried about his brand than his people. And I'm just giving an example. Please, I don't know Jay-Z. I'm not famous. But
listen, man. The thing is this. It's like, be willing to accept the consequences. Okay? That's all I'm saying. So,
yeah.
If you are somebody of your word, then you should be able to accept the consequences of sticking to your word and standing on your word.
Like, I said this sounds bad, but don't be afraid to offend people. And when I say there's two types of offending people. There's one where you insult somebody and insult them, like, hey, you're a dick. But then there's also offending where, like, you tell the truth and they're offended by that. I'm like, okay, if I'm just being honest and I'm pointing out an observation, then you shouldn't be mad at me. You should probably be more mad at yourself for allowing that to happen, or something that you can't control. But insulting somebody and offending somebody are two different things. And I just want to point that out.
Well, for example, people can get on social media and have disagreements with people that they respect, people they've known for long periods of time, about simple things. For example, how the coronavirus has been overblown. That is a view that I have still about the entire thing. And not to go too deep into that, but I'm using it as an example as how you can have a view that a lot of people won't like, because these people are afraid and they're looking for the strong man to protect them instead of thinking for themselves.
Exactly. Or, you know what? The other thing is, people are just not intelligent anymore. And I'm not saying everybody's dumb. That's not what I'm saying.
Critical
I'm saying that
thinking, lateral thinking.
yes, yes, people aren't reading for themselves. People didn't become educated the same way. There's so many people becoming educated by television and documentary and movies. And so I, I'm a gun guy. So there's nothing crazier than when somebody tries to tell you, this gun will do this. Okay, they're both semi-automatics. They both fire at the same rate. Just because one gun is black and one gun has wood doesn't mean the other gun is safer. What it is that when you're educated by mass media, when you're educated by movies and things like that, much of that is emotional based or emotional driven. So you're like, oh my God, they set up the club. Like, yeah, that's a bad thing. But the fact of the matter is, us in the black community have been dealing with that until they put it on CNN. You didn't give a damn about it. So people who aren't educated by reading. It's fine to go to school and learn something, but once you learn, then it's up to you to educate yourself and find out about what the worldview is, or how this works, or how this is actually applied. That's what the hard part is.
Well, the thing is, a lot of people are educated through mass media nowadays, and nobody reads anything. I told you about the guy that rolled up on me talking about
You talking about Yahweh Ben Yahweh?
that dude.
Yeah, a little bit ago there was a documentary about it's called Cults. It's on Investigation Discovery. So I had heard a couple things about this Yahweh Ben Yahweh guy, and basically he's doing the same thing as the Hebrew Israelites. So yeah, I'm like, I see this documentary. I'm like, he's killing folks. He's going. This is back in the '80s, but he had like, I guess when he was all said and done, had like $700 million in property and stuff like that. So whenever I see these kind of stories, I try to ask old black people about somebody like, hey, you was around back in the '70s, into the '80s when this guy was big. What was it really like? And this lady who I work with just let me have it because she's like, nah, my family's from Oklahoma. His grandfather, I don't know the truth. Y'all can look it up because I don't want to make up some shit. But she said his daddy and his grandfather pulled the same similar kind of thing back in Oklahoma, where they was running this town. So this guy just did the same thing. I'm not saying the information that he's giving out there ain't true. I'm saying how he used that information to influence black folks, build up a fortune, and start killing people who didn't agree with him. That's the problem. That's the cult status. But that's the whole thing that my brother is saying. Roscoe is that what he was saying was unpopular, and black folks clung to it because we agreed with it. It resonated with us. But that doesn't make that guy God, because that's what Yahweh Ben Yahweh, God, Son, God. Yeah, that's what he changed his name to God, Son of God. That's arrogant. That takes some balls to change the name to Yahweh Ben Yahweh.
So the whole reason I brought that cat up is because this guy rolled up on me and asked me if I ever heard of him. I was like, yeah, I've heard of him before. And I'm like, can you recommend any books? I'm all I'm doing at this point is just humoring this motherfucker. I'm like, can you recommend any books? And he's like, no, but there's like 300 something YouTube videos, bruh. Crack a book and stick your head in it, okay? Stop with all this YouTube video bullshit, dude. Go read a book. Go get some knowledge. Tell me where I can go and read about this stuff. Don't tell me to go look for something online. Like that's the worst. That's the quickest way to piss me off is to use a YouTube reference. I mean, of course, you and I might do that with each other. You know what I mean? And that's
So
because,
we know each other. We
but
know each other. Yeah,
yes, yes, but we also were both well read. And if anybody questions that, challenge me. I'll embarrass your ass. Don't challenge me to what I've read and how deep my fucking knowledge is. Anyway, my point is, you can be a contrarian, dude. But if you're going to be a contrarian, and you know what? I guess it worked out for this Yahweh Ben Yahweh motherfucker being a contrarian because, he got
it
a
worked
lot
out
of,
very well for
yeah,
him.
he got like a gang of fucking followers. This is the thing. I'm also saying you need to stick to your guns, right? You have to stick to your guns because you're going to get blowback. And
All the time. All the
yes,
time.
and you're going to have to know how to deal with your detractors, the people that are challenging your point of view. Because, I mean, look, you can get some information, you can get some information online, and if you don't cross reference it and then you go spout this information, you're going to run into a person who is well read and will just slice you and dice you like some cheap onions.
The whole thing is also you got people who disagree with you, but you need to also be aware of what they're saying and is it relevant or does it apply to the situation? Just as I told you about a situation where these ladies told me like, hey, we don't use antibiotics for viruses, you use them for bacteria. And I'm like, well, why? They said science. I'm like, well, enlighten me, because that's not what we were taught in second, third grade. But the thing is, if somebody's coming at you and they're like, hey, hey, Ren, look at this, or research this. I'm going to stick to my guns, but I'm also going to research, because if I'm wrong, I need to know I'm wrong, and I don't want to be a liar. I don't want to deceive people. I don't want to throw some shit out there and be wrong. So you want to sit down and do the research and find out how this applies. But at the same time, there's some people that they're going to throw you off because they're jealous of your position too, or you're saying too much, or you're doing too much, or they just want to assault your character. Because that's what we do nowadays. Instead of attack the argument, we attack the person's character. Because that's much easier than don't attack my character, because my character is not what's in question. That's how we do these political candidates. Like, okay, Bernie Sanders is a good idea, but hey, he's a failed businessman. I dig it, but ain't nobody else bringing nothing different to the table. Now, I am not a Bernie fan or any fan. I'm not endorsing any political party, but I'm saying that's how we do nowadays, and we dig up trash on a person instead of like, hey, I disagree for this reason.
Speaking to the issues. That's the thing. Is like there's all this back and forth and it's him and the haw, and it's like all you doing is arguing on the color of the sky and not
Mm-hmm.
talking about the chemtrails in the sky or the quality of the air that people are breathing.
The quality of air, yes, 100%, yes.
But and another reason why we're speaking on this topic today is because if you listen to a lot of things we speak about in these episodes, there are issues that we discuss from an alternate view, from a view that you're not hearing every day. And what we're saying is if you're going to go into these things, do your research. You have to do your research so that you can be bulletproof when you speak about what you are speaking on, when you on the topics that you choose. Because, for example, if you're talking about, all right, is America a true democracy? Or has there been progress in civil rights? You know what I mean? Like when you talk about these things, that's a minefield. So you better know where all those mines are planted, or she gonna step on that motherfucker and lose a leg, dude.
But it's the same thing that whenever you talk about race and you talk about race to white people, either they don't talk at all, or they say something like, well, it's better than it was. Like, I have a problem with it, because there should be no racism. There should be no bigotry. There should be none of that, especially in a free society where I should be allowed to compete freely. That's what this is about. I get it. White supremacy affirmative action is the opposite of white supremacy. You understand? White supremacy was affirmative action for white people. They were a minority, so they had to change the laws and the landscape for them to be successful. And people don't see it that way, but that's exactly what it is, because they were afraid of dying out genetically. They were afraid of this, so we put these things in place. Now, we're supposed to be a free society, so we're trying to dismantle that white supremacy, but it's hard to do because it's also ingrained in people's IQ and identity and psyche. It's so embedded that it's really hard to get rid of. And it's so bad to the point where you see a successful black person, you assume he's a setup. You assume she's a setup. You assume that they
Not
have to do
anymore.
something to get there.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
You
It used to
don't
be
think
that
so?
way. No, I don't think so. I think it used to be that way. But no, when you live in a place where a lot of successful black people are, that's not the paradigm. That's not the worldview, man.
Oh yeah, I dig it. I'm talking about the world scale. But yes, you live in a city where you have a
A
bunch of
lot of
successful black people.
successful black people, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that goes back to the whole Tulsa's. The it's Gap Band, Greenvine, Archer, and Pine. It goes back to that, where you were primarily dealing with black people, black people's money. We could trust you, and we were prosperous. And that's huge to have. When I say black market, I don't mean illegal market. I mean shopping black, where you can actually spend your money with black businesses effectively. That's what I was talking about. And to even talk about that is a taboo.
Yeah, right.
know,
And that's an unpopular view.
yeah.
But see, okay, so then that also leads into the question as if asking whether integration helped us or hurt us more.
Wow. I feel that it hurt us because everybody knows we had a common enemy. Dismantling the system of racism and white supremacy. But now, all of a sudden, when you're integrated, you feel like you've accomplished something. See, I'm
Okay,
gonna
okay.
regret this.
Wait, 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 wait,
Look,
wait, 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 wait. Hold on. I gotta say something. if you look at the Asian community and then you pair that with the black community of Tulsa in the 20s or Harlem in the 20s or in the 30s, they're very similar. There's a lot of solidarity. And then,
The solidarity is great. Yeah, I can dig it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The solidarity is great because the solidarity also means economic coherence. So
Hmm.
the thing is that it disappeared. It went away. Was it integration that made that go away? You know what I mean? Like you have to ask, like, what caused that? Was it integration as well as the drug narco trafficking system that brought down and destroyed the black family?
Well, okay. First things first. You know my opinion on this. Everything you named was a factor in that, and that's the problem when you talk about an economy. People talk about economy like it's in a vacuum. When they moved the manufacturing base in the late '70s, early '80s, excuse me, in the late '80s, that's how they punished us for the civil rights movement. They moved the manufacturing base out the inner cities and moved it to the suburbs. And so by doing that, you created a void, and that's where that narco stuff came in with the drugs. When you have a void, it's filled by drugs, guns, and gangs because
Mm-hmm.
those are the only things that survive in a
In a vacuum. Yeah.
industrialist society or area. But then they tricked the white folks because they moved those same companies out the suburbs. There were a lot of small towns that were hoisted up by these companies, and they moved them overseas because it was cheaper. So that's always my warning to white people. Whatever they do to black people, they're going to do to poor
That
white
yeah,
folks next.
say it again, because black history is the future for white people.
Well, yeah, Black history is the future for white people. That's deep, but and that's what's going on to us right now with the coronavirus. You have white people who don't know how they're going to pay their bills. You have white people who are scared of health care and lack thereof. They're scared of resources, things like that, and they don't know how they're going to make it. But we've always lived in that society. So when you realize that these white people can't live black, that just tells you like how do you imagine it for us? Like the biggest thing with this coronavirus, again, it's unpopular. But they're talking about the disparaging and the black deaths and white deaths, but that goes to the black general health. That goes back to the air quality, which we talked about last time. That goes back to the diet and healthcare, and the fact that the healthcare industry is not about keeping people healthy; it's about treating illness and teaching you how to live sick. They're trying to teach you how to live with the disease, and so with that being said, look, I got diabetes, hypertension. So I know what I need to do. I need to fast for 10, 12 days, get the shit out my system. I say it on every broadcast. Look, most I can do is 5 days, but I'm doing the best I can. But what I'm saying is back to the original question is did integration hurt black people? It hurt black people because the idea that there were laws saying that I could not spend my money at a white store. I cannot go to this white diner. And so you were trying to tear down those walls of segregation and stuff like that, where I could spend with you. But that's the biggest problem is that integration gives you the ability to spend with a dominant society, and that's all it does. It doesn't give you a vote. It doesn't give you influence in their society. It doesn't give you anything like that. And that's what the problem with segregation is, that all it did was allow us to spend our money with a dominant society, because we were spending our money with ourselves, and we were making ourselves exceptional, awesome. Back in the
So
80s, remember.
check this out, man. Check this out. So like it's been 118 years since influenza hit America.
Mhm.
And this coronavirus event, pandemic that happened to the world, that's happening to America, it is causing everybody to be shaken from their comfortable slumber. People were way too comfortable for a long time. And they got so comfortable, they got so soft, they began to nitpick about the smallest things, you
I
know?
dig it.
And because of that, it's almost like these Illuminati motherfuckers is like, okay, we're getting tired of all your Zim Zer Zer bullshit. It's time for us to hit you with the big whammy, with the
The
DDT,
gut punch.
and put you in
The
the, in
gut
the, in the
punch. Yeah.
chicken wing and suplex your ass because you're ripe. You're ripe for the takeover now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, the problem with this is that people have gotten so soft and let their guard down that they don't see what is coming next. Because when September 11th happened,
Yes.
oh wait,
Preach.
wait, wait. When,
Amen.
when September 11th happened, they took away many civil and constitutional liberties, the right to privacy, They took it away, and you had the rise of the surveillance state. And so now what we have is them wanting to track everybody and their movements. Because look, we're going to make sure you're healthy, but we're going to track you so that we know where you are and if you're keeping healthy.
Well, no, hold on. It's the social distancing. They're going to tell by your social distancing when you got more than 10 cell phones in one spot. That
Yes.
gives the government. Yeah. So they are they are taking your rights, but they're using it as healthcare. Or
Okay.
we're worried about you.
So
So yeah,
so
keep going. Keep on.
so what you're seeing now is an overlapping of industries. Now, you're seeing the healthcare industry overlapping with the surveillance state, overlapping with social engineering. So now what you
Mm,
have in China is a form of social currency that's being used to
to
monitor
get points.
and to get points, brownie points for how good you behave, how many friends you have, how likable you are. Now,
How you
that's
follow the rules.
how
Follow
good
the
you
rules, and you
follow
get
the
a point.
rules. That's the bottom line. All this is about how good you follow the rules. Now, that is, they're trying to slowly creep that in. They want to slowly creep that in with how well you're social distancing, how well we can track you, how good you are being. It will give you credit for that. And since we've destroyed the dollar and the markets through fear, well now we're going to give everybody $1,500. That'll be your starting credit. And guess what? We don't have to mail you a check. We can put it into your bank account. It'll just be digital, bruh. Yesterday, I ordered a pizza. I went to go pick up the pizza. Before I got there, I had to pay for it, right? I said, well, hold on,
Hmm.
I'm gonna pay in cash. No, we don't take cash. What do you mean you don't take
Nope.
cash? You have to take cash. It's by law you have to take cash. See that
Look,
that right there. But hold on, these things, and you know what else? You know who said that? The the head of the WHO. The
World
head
Health
the
Organization.
head of the
No
W
juris.
the head of the
No.
WHO, the World Health Organization has no jurisdiction, right? Listen,
No power whatsoever.
the thing is, this guy was the health minister in Ethiopia, and he covered up a cholera epidemic in Ethiopia. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes. Oh, he's crooked. Oh, he hella crooked, dude. Oh man, he's
Hey,
more.
but
Listen, he's more
oh,
crooked than California mountain highways.
look, the biggest thing how this works, Roscoe, is what happens whenever America gets exposed, going back to 9/11, coming to now, whenever America gets exposed and we realize that things are artificially hyped up, and then this is our reaction. Our reaction is fear. Fear is always used to control people on the mass level because that's how they done us as black people. You have overseers, officers in the community beating up on you. Use fear. Whatever Joe Louis want to fight, what do? They lynch brothers. They lynch niggas. They lynch you, so you would fear. This is how you control people. And so whenever we find out that America sometimes is manufactured, like don't get me wrong, I believe in capitalism over socialism for different reasons, and we can have a long conversation about that. I do believe that some of the things that Bernie Sanders is really saying, that's not socialism. That's just good business for a large number of people. Whenever they say that, oh, they're giving you a check, that's not socialism. Whenever they say that we're expanding Medicare, that's not socialism. What that is taking care of your people on a higher level, dismantling an industry that's crooked. The healthcare industry, the insurance industry is crooked, so you need to get rid of it. So so going back to 9/11. So when we found out that, okay, if we're dealing with a country like Russia, that when they got nuclear missiles and we got nuclear missiles, we got planes, they got planes, everything is cool. But when you're dealing with a bunch of people who are in a small country and they think of a way to attack you without using conventional weapons, where they flew a couple planes into buildings, whether that's the true narrative or not, that still was an attack on us, and we were caught with our pants down. So what did we do? We gave up our, like you just said, my brother. We gave up our freedom. Like, okay, you know what? They need to monitor every phone call, every cell phone, every email, because we don't want anybody to do that to us again. Now, you know as well as I do, most of that communication was done on cell phone, and some of it was done in person, personal carrier. But that doesn't mean that's a chance for them to take our rights. Now, fast forward to right now. Now we currently are dealing with the coronavirus, but before that we had H1N1. Before that we had the flu. Before that we had the swine flu. Before that, so we didn't lose our rights because of those illnesses. Why are we losing our rights now?
Because of the
And this goes back.
rise of technocracy. Because of the
Yeah.
rise of a technocracy. But hold on, bro.
Yes.
Hold on. I want to talk
Yes.
about pushback.
Preach.
I'm gonna talk about pushback, but I'm gonna preface that with a poem from Charles Bukowski. It's called "Go All the Way." If you ever watch a movie called Factotum, at the end of the movie, he's sitting in a strip club, and he's the only guy in the strip club smoking a cigarette, watching this stripper on stage. And the poem goes like this: If you're going to go all the way, let me back up. If you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, and maybe even your mind. It could mean not eating for 3 or 4 days. It could mean freezing on a park bench. It could mean jail. It could mean derision. It could mean mockery, isolation. Isolation is the gift. All the others are just a test of your endurance, of how much you really want to do it. And you'll do it despite rejection and the worst odds. It will be better than anything else you can imagine. If you're going to try, go all the way. There is no other feeling like that. You'll be alone with the gods, and the nights will flame with fire. You'll ride life straight to perfect laughter. It's the only good fight there is. Bukowski. Dude, so I said that, I read that poem because it's about sticking to your guns. And right now, you need to stick to your guns. In particular, when it comes to being logical about illogical situations. There are people who will give you emotional reactions when you speak against the mindset that they're programming everybody to have about coronavirus, about living in the rise of a technocracy, about your information being sold. It's like we're if you think about our birth certificates and going from there, and how that's being traded and sold without you even knowing about it. And so the whole thing is that all of these rights, your worth is being sold against you and sold back to you without your knowledge. But it, yes, and the problem is we don't take the time to read. When you go to these free email websites, when you download an app, you're in such a hurry to bust that satisfactory nut that you do not read
Read the
the
fine
fine
print.
print.
Fine print. Mm-mm.
You know, you just want to get on with it. You just want to just get to it. You want to use the new toy you got, but you don't read the fine print. Because if you
And they
read that
tell
fine
you,
print, yes, and if you read that fine print, you would say, I am a boy, Damon. I ain't going for this.
look, what it is that you're more worried about the small objective, the short term goal, than the long term goal. And that's what happens to all of us in this society is that, okay, I want instant gratification. Everybody wants to be a star, but nobody wants to put in the work. Like we've said this on other podcasts. Back in my day, to be famous, you had to be talented. You had to have something to offer. Now, to be famous, all you need is a media outlet. And once you get that outlet, you can do whatever foolishness you want, and people will laugh or people will agree with you. It's it's complicated for the simple fact that we are no longer human, and we're giving that up. And you talk about your birth certificate as a commodity. Whenever you talk about capitalism, and black folks don't like capitalism, socialism, this, that, the biggest problem with capitalism as an African American, first off, our history didn't start with slavery. Our history goes on to the beginning of time, 12,000, 13, 14,000 years of known history. But let's talk about when we came to America, and this is a capitalist society, what was the capital that was traded? Black people were the capital. You must understand that white folks couldn't own land. You couldn't own nothing over in England and Europe. So you came here where you could purchase capital. And that was human capital. That was slaves, black and white slaves. Now, eventually after the Bacon Rebellion, that's what changed everything, where the white slaves stood up and the white people gave the white slaves gunpowder and land if you help us keep the black people in line. But that's the issue. So when you realize that that people become capital, then you realize that's the same rule that applies to anybody in this country with a birth certificate. That's what they gives you your number. That's what they use to use you as a commodity. Uh, we don't. The dollar ain't based on gold anymore. It's based on production. So the more Social Security numbers you have, the more production you should have as a country. That's what this is about. And when you realize once that cloak is removed, and you're like, oh hell, I'm just a worker bee. You know what I'm saying? Then you like, okay, then I see the rules differently and I participate differently, knowing the rules of the game. The thing is, when you have an unpopular opinion, sometimes that's the only thing that's going to keep you going. When it helps you sleep at night, knowing that, hey, I'm right. I got to do things differently. And if you don't use that to your advantage, and you don't let people distract you, you can actually accomplish something. You can change the world. And that's
Yes.
not the narrative.
That's
The, the,
why
the
you
biggest
have to
thing,
go all the way.
but going back to Malcolm and Martin Luther King, the biggest thing that J. Edgar Hoover was afraid of was a black messiah. He did not want a black messiah. And so those guys were killed. They were martyrs. They were killed, and the movement kept going. But the
Do
movement would
you
have been
know the
even better.
FBI sent a letter to Martin Luther King, fucking with him, saying, "You know what to do. Go ahead and kill yourself." You know that
But
they sent him. It's
no, they didn't.
COINTELPRO. They sent him. They were trying to psychologically, freak him out and fake him out and make him kill himself.
I got a funny story. I told you this happened to me last weekend. Somebody, because I'm not afraid of certain things. I'm not afraid of people. I'm not afraid of guns. I'm not afraid of being arrested or whatever. This young lady asked me if I was an FBI agent. She said, "Are you FBI?" I'm like, what? And because she's reading all these books now about Malcolm. With the documentary Who Killed Malcolm X, with these documentaries and these things coming out about King being heavily surveilled by the FBI. The
Yes.
FBI back then had a completely different. It wasn't just investigation; it was actually manipulation. So the FBI was responsible for probably both their deaths in some way, shape, or form, whether it was complacency or whatever.
Well,
And
hold
so,
on. Pause for a second because you and I spoke about this before, and his wife, Coretta Scott King, they won a lawsuit against the
yes,
U.S. government. Nobody
wrongful
talked
death
about this.
lawsuit.
Yes, wrongful
Yes.
death lawsuit because they knew that there were saboteurs and assassins that were gunning to kill him, and they did nothing about it.
Along those lines, the worst case of this the Black Panther Party. Richard Enoki was a Chinese person that had worked for the FBI. He was used in, I guess, late '60s to take down the Chinese. I guess they had a radical Chinese element in San Francisco, in that area, Berkeley, in California. So they used him against the Black Panther Party because at the time, I guess they didn't have enough black agents. So Richard Enoki hooked up with the Black Panthers, and so the first guns the Black Panthers had, because remember, the Panthers were broke. They couldn't afford guns. Richard Enoki took the guns from the FBI and supplied the guns to the Black Panther Party. The first guns the Black Panthers got, these are the Black Panthers in Oakland, Black Panthers for self-defense, were from the FBI itself. And this goes back to the quid tale you were talking about. A lot of the literature that was from the Black Panther Party was not. It was from the FBI, and the FBI made them stronger than what they really were going to ever be. And what we're trying to say is that there were always infiltrators in these movements, and they were by the FBI. And the FBI, if
The
there wasn't a
reason the
threat,
reason
the
why they let that Chinese dude in is because he posed as a communist, and they were
yes,
sympathetic to communism.
yes, complicated, deep conversation, because somebody else recently was saying, well, hey, General Mao was cool with the Panthers. Like, no, General Mao wanted to make America look bad. He didn't care about the Panthers' struggle. He didn't give them no money. Anything to make the American government look bad. That's deep conversation. But the reason Richard Enoki is so important is because what the FBI did back then, where there wasn't a threat, they created a threat. There was a possibility that these black folks might do something. They made sure that they had the weapons and the ability to do something. So when they did something and the FBI got involved and stopped them, then all of a sudden it looked like, hey, we're doing our job. And the truth was, the FBI is the one who created them as a threat, made them a threat, because they weren't a threat to begin with. Unpopular opinion. Proceed, my brother.
Well, all I'm saying is that there's what we're speaking on regarding being unpopular in an opinion or in your view. You have to be able to dig in your feet and fight that fight all the way to the end because it speaks to your integrity. And you have to have integrity. Earlier, you and I were speaking about somebody that we knew for quite some time who is devoid of integrity, and is just a thirst trap for attention, like these bras on Twitter, not Twitter, but on Instagram. And
Instagram.
yes, and the whole thing is that you have to have integrity because, man, listen, really, it's about the way you live and the way you die, and you have to have integrity all the way in living and in death. Why even live? Why make ripples in this reality as a shit stain when you can be a stoic mountain?
Hey, look, this stuff. I've never smoked weed. I've never really done drugs. I've drank a little bit, and prescription like Doc gives you some codeine, which is a drug. You take it, but people made fun of me for years for not smoking weed, not doing this, not doing cocaine, whatever. And I was like, I'm a Dave Chappelle fan, but I was saying some Dave Chappelle jokes before Dave Chappelle did. I said, look, if I ever get pulled over and I get a shootout with the police and they put some cocaine or crack in my car,
It's a
I need you
lie.
white folks, my friends. Yes, y'all said no. If you know me, you know that's not me. Now I'm gonna have a gun on me. Y'all, if they said, "Hey, Renix had a gun," I'm sorry. If they said duct tape had a gun, y'all know that's true. But if they said duct tape had cocaine or anything else on them, y'all know that's a lie. So I need y'all. But that's what integrity is for, and that's what you're saying about how you live and how you die. If something was to happen to me, I need my friends and family to speak up. Like, hey, that's
Yes.
not the guy I knew.
That's a
not the duct
perfect
tape I knew.
example of what I'm talking about because then what forms is an image. And this goes back to the podcast that we had about self-image. This goes back to speaking about how you create your reality in such a way that it affects other people. And in your view that you create, your reality that you create is people see that and they see the way you carry yourself and they see that your reputation, if it's grand,
It
precedes you.
precedes you.
It
Yes, it's an
precedes you.
aura.
That's the thing.
It's,
So
it
so that when
it comes in 3 hours
if you
before
live
before you
in a
walk in the room.
righteous way, it's a good point. If you live in a righteous way, that no matter what happens, people will know that if there was a wrongful death, it'll be obvious. They'll be like, yeah, he was a freedom fighter. He was building bridges, in third world countries and fighting for the rights of people. But he was a pedophile, or he got caught up in some gay sex, orgy, a blood sacrifice. What? No, 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 no,
Nah,
no,
nah,
no,
nah,
no,
nah,
no,
nah.
no, no, no.
No, not my
You are
guy.
trying to
Not,
smear this motherfucker's name. That's what y'all trying to do. Don't fall the banana. Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe.
but that's the whole thing is that, and once we found out, because people worship America, people are worshiping things. These are is idolatry at its finest. So when you find out that America ain't what it's supposed to be, or America's hoisted up, then all of a sudden everything else seems that it could be fake, or it could be hoisted up, or it's not actually what I thought. So that happens
Ah,
whenever when somebody
now you're
gets
talking.
that,
Now
yeah,
you're
when somebody gets
talking.
that, oh my God, that's not what I thought, or he ain't who I look. The biggest person we're talking about right now is Bill Cosby. Whatever you like, okay, was he what he's Bill Cosby was probably a good black guy, but might not have been a good perfect man or whatever. And my opinion is this. I'm sure he raped some of them women. I don't think he raped all of them, but still, whatever the case is, that's wrong. He should be punished for his activities. But the problem with Bill was he was very powerful and very wealthy, and people let him get away with that, because they wanted some of that light to shine on them. This goes back to the whole Jay-Z situation. What happens when somebody is uber rich and uber powerful, you're more worried about getting your power, getting your little dose, getting yours, than actually correcting that person's behavior. Because also when you're powerful, when somebody doesn't agree with you, they eliminate you. Michael Jackson was a prime example. He didn't want nobody around him like, hey, Mike, you shouldn't be doing this. And so he got rid of you. And that's your biggest fear is that, okay, if I speak up, I don't have a job anymore. If I don't speak, I'm a moon, he's a sun. If I speak up, then his light won't reflect off me anymore. And that's what's happening with these people whenever you catch these people doing messed up stuff. The big, like I said, the case that me and Roscoe always talk about is the Franklin Credit Union scandal, because we're from Omaha, Nebraska. And that was something that took place here where you had a powerful, rich figure, but everybody let him run
And
a couple blocks and
what it did was pull the curtain back on this
yes,
underworld that existed right beneath the layer of the world that we saw. And this is speaking to,
the layer of civility, the
yes.
layer of civility.
And so it speaks to what you mentioned earlier about seeing America for what it really is. When you start to wake up and you start to learn about history, actual history, the way it happened, you see things like the East India Trading Company was nothing but
Mm,
a drug smuggling group of pirates, of European pirates, took opium to China and got them hooked on it. And they then used the money to build institutional foundations so they could infiltrate
mm,
structures of power. They founded Yale University, and all these captains of industry that came out of there started all these dog eat dog companies in America. And then the children of those men went into
still
law
benefit.
enforcement, went into the military, became presidents. And meanwhile, all this is happening. You have the slaughter of the Native Americans. You have stolen Africans brought to this country as a commodity, used. Then you have the formation of currency in this country, the Federal Reserve System.
Oh, the Federal Reserve, yes, the
Yes.
Federal
And
Reserve, and
then, you
that is a
have
corporation. That's not a government entity.
exactly. And then you
It's
have
not
the
just
foundation of
just
the
like the World Health
IRS.
Organization. Yep.
And then you have, segregation. And you have the Civil War and the segregation. And all of these things are what America really is. But the thing about that is there's a polar opposite to that. There's people fighting to live dignified lives amongst all this
For,
ugliness.
yeah. But those are the peasants though. That's what makes it. That's what make that work. Is that these peasants are fighting these battles
The
for
humble
these
people.
capital. Yes, for these guys, these major industry guys, these superior, these royals, whatever you want to call them. And while the common man fights this daily struggle, this battle, the rich are getting richer. And every once in a while they'll toss you a bone or they'll add a new rich person. And that's the biggest problem with adding a new rich person to that. Then that rich person becomes loyal to the money. Bill Gates, loyal to the money. He's not loyal to any people. Why is he on the Daily Show? Why is he talking about vaccines? He ain't no vaccine specialist. Why are we even listening to that guy? But but for me to talk out against him because he's a friendly billionaire, I get people told me I'm crazy. The fact of the matter is this: what Bill Gates is doing is that he is influencing the government, and if he makes it legal that you have to have a vaccine to go across state lines, then he will own the rights to that vaccine. He'll get even super rich, super richer. And that's what he's looking at. He's already doing it in other countries in Africa. He's influencing these poor countries where hey, you need a vaccine. Why do we need a coronavirus vaccine in the continent of Africa that has 1.3 billion people but only 300 cases? So
But hold on.
if
But
that was the
there's a flip side to that. So, and this goes to the technocracy idea, where not only are they wanting to vaccinate everybody, but see, you got to remember that Bill Gates and guys like Ted Turner are proponents of population control. So, in that vaccine, in a genetic phenotype or genotype, there could be something that causes men to go sterile.
mm,
That
it could we said could we said it
hey,
could be.
the Tuskegee
We said
experiment
could
was done on black men in America. All right,
healthy black men
and
healthy.
history can repeat itself again. But the technocratic side of that is that what Bill Gates was also doing is he was going to Bangladesh and these poor countries and starting ID 2020. He was
Mm, yep,
funding this thing where they're tracking people all around the world. And
that's
so
the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
correct. And what they're actually their argument is that, well, there's 1.6 billion people on the planet who don't have an identification. That means they don't have access to healthcare. That means they don't have access to education or banking
That's
or
messed up.
I'm like, wait. Stop. That's horseshit. Because if that was the case, there'd be a whole lot more deaths because people don't have fucking IDs. So,
Hold it. Let me tell you the problem with this situation. I had a dear friend of mine. He went to Ethiopia about a year ago, and he said, "Hey, bro," he said, "I had a great experience." He said, "I went all over the place in Ethiopia, had a good time." He said he met a brother that had a donkey, and he's like, "Hey, don't you want a car?" He said, "No, I don't want a car." Because if I have a car, then I have to buy gas. And he's like, what? He said, yeah. Because if I have to buy gas, the young brother explained, like, I don't want to contribute to this oil stuff, this embark. He's like, look, me and my donkey are fine with our hay. And so what he's saying, these people are free. Well, Bill Gates is telling you that they need this, they need that, because he's appealing
Yes.
to your
That's a
logic as he
globalist
sits.
thinking.
Yes. And so when you realize that these people who are free on purpose. And that was another thing that me and you had talked about. I said, you sit here and talk about Africa and they keep finding these ruins. Who's to say that Africa did not abandon its technology on purpose? That's why you had these natives running around naked, not because they were savages and couldn't, it's because they chose, like, hey, this
I want
Tower
to
of
be
Babel shit
free.
is
We're
real.
going to be free.
Yes, free. Because the more technology you have, the more you become a slave to your technology. And also you're a slave to your image of your technology because you believe that everybody wants what you have, that all these other nations want the same technology you got. Look, you know the biggest export from America? Rap music and porn. Look, people love our rap music and they love our porn. Those are the things that we send out to the rest of the planet because we ain't got nothing else to offer. You know what I'm saying? So we corrupt other people with our value system. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I love my country and I love but I don't believe that somebody else needs what I got. The idea that we love to push democracy, ask Patrice Lumumba. the,
Yeah, yeah.
the,
The
the,
CIA, the
the Democrat,
CIA threw his ass out of a plane. So look,
yeah,
man,
the
this
Democratic
this is the
Congo,
thing.
that
These
was
people,
democracy.
yes, indeed. The thing is, these people believe their way is the only way. That's how a globalist thinks. We talked about this before. They don't give a shit about your way of life. They want you to join and assimilate to their way of life because their way of life is going to make money for them. Your way of life is not going to make no money for them.
Nope. They want what you got, even if you don't have anything. That's terrible.
Yeah, yeah, dude. So, you
Look,
know, like, hang on.
look.
Go ahead.
I said one of the worst examples I saw on Facebook recently was not Ron Paul, but Rand Paul was complaining about the Native Americans not assimilating, not conforming. That's their problem. And I'm like, how can you say it's their problem? That's like me breaking in your house and moving your furniture around and telling you to like.
That's their
They
problem.
they were
That's
already
their
here.
fucking
I don't have to.
problem.
Yeah, yeah. No, but people don't. You're so white supremacist that you don't realize what you're saying is offensive and wrong. But the fact is, you have the power to influence that by creating governments and doing these things. And remember, governments ain't nothing but a company. That's what nobody wants to believe. We talked about the Nation of Islam privately. Like, hey, by by creating this nation, which you're creating as a government, and you're dealing with your people, and you're creating an income base specifically for your people, but it does go up to somebody else at the top. Somebody at the top is still gaining more wealth than anybody else, but that but that's the idea of a government. Somebody at the top is gaining more money and more power. And so when people realize that these corporations, that these governments, these states are nothing but corporations, that when one state is bankrupt and their federal government comes in, it's just a money making scheme. It's cool, but we need to partake in it. And here's the other problem that nobody wants to address: government for the people, by the people. We all of us need to partake in the government. We need to start running. I don't agree with everybody's opinions, but we need to run and get those opinions out there and bring down these rich people who can afford to run and stop them from running and influencing and lobbying and that kind of stuff. That's what the whole the whole point in Trump running was he's going to drain the swamp. No, he ain't drained shit. He peed in the swamp and made more water. You got to recognize that there was somebody that politics and
Oh
government are
shit.
two different things. Politics are how you get there, and these people are using politics and influence and power and promise and shit. But then you get there and run the government, and they run it into the ground, and that's how America got exposed because it was propped up on these people who don't give a damn about the people beneath them. All they care about is standing on your back, not how you're doing down there. And so until the common folks like us start running, which I do plan on doing, until we get involved. And somebody told me, well, it only matters if you're involved in state government. None of that. That's all crap. We got to get common people in the Senate.
But
We
you
got to
know
get
what? You know what? Let me
common
say
people in
something.
Congress.
You know what the coronavirus did though? It's an equalizer. It brought
Mhm.
everybody down to baseline.
Yeah, they're all black now. That's what I was saying. we everybody black. Mexicans are black. White people are black. Uh, Eastern Europeans are black. Yes, that's what the problem is, and they don't realize that's how we've been living for the longest. We've been existing in that area this entire time. So come to us for advice. I'll teach you how to survive. But once that's done, then we all need to come together and take back the government. You ain't got to have some kind of youth revolution and start shooting people. If you want to go that route, cool. I ain't got a problem with it. But if you ain't got to, there's other ways to take it back. A
So
hostile takeover.
this is the thing though, but like, I mean, do it in a way that you're a guerrilla soldier, that you're a guerrilla army. Create disruptive technologies.
Mm,
Foster
mm.
disruptive thinking. Have disruptive conversations with your friends and family because it's going to make waves. But, ladies and gentlemen, you got to stand on your word. You got to be willing to be ostracized. And to the point that nobody is listening. But what's going to happen is they will come around and they will listen. That's the whole point of what we're saying here is that you
Stop
have
being embarrassed. Stop being scared.
stop being afraid, right? But
Take that
see,
chance.
and that's the thing though, because like I mean, you know, you voiced to me privately disappointment in some of your friends and associates in their reactions to some of the things that they were seeing and saying on the social media.
It drives you crazy because sometimes when you respect somebody, you respect them for who they are, but sometimes you also give them a little extra something. And when people sit here and tell me that I'm crazy for thinking this, I'm like, okay, fine, I'm crazy, but I've been living it. As a black person in America, we've been living this already. And so when I spot the fact that it's corrupt cops, when I spot the fact that there are government officials that say one thing and do something different, when I spot the fact that you got a businessman that comes into my neighborhood, makes a bunch of money, and doesn't put anything into it, that is a common theme, and that now what's happening on a global
And
level.
you know what else? You know what
And
else?
that makes it.
You know what's not popular? Calling shit like it really is. It's not. It's so
No,
unpopular to call shit like it really is. But don't be afraid to
call
do
a
that.
spade a spade.
Exactly. And you know what else? Don't waste your time with people that don't agree with you. That okay, listen, we may agree to disagree, but if you don't want to listen, there's no point in talking to you.
How you gonna learn if I don't listen? Yeah, I gotta listen to the people that don't agree with me too, because like I said, if they're the search is for truth. You should be looking for truth. And if you're looking for truth and that person's telling you the truth, okay, well, damn, I was doing this all wrong. I was practicing Christianity wrong. I was doing this math wrong. I was applying this concept wrong. So then you change your behavior or you don't. Because, that cognitive dissonance, that's how white folks survive. Y'all knew racism was wrong for years, but hey, this is how I live. I get it where I get it. So you got to be careful. If you discover a new light, you need to use it accordingly. But that cognitive dissonance, that's when you know something is wrong, you keep doing it anyway. Look, a lot of them husbands, y'all womanizing, or y'all cheating on your wife, or the infidelity. Yeah, that's cognitive dissonance. You knew from the beginning it was wrong. It's not, don't worry until you get caught. Stop doing it. Grow up. Same thing with these women manipulating men because they know that they're, like you said, thirst trap. They want that attention. But you know that's wrong because you're preying on somebody. Stop preying on people and create your own wealth from something positive. And when I say wealth, I don't just mean money. I mean spiritual wealth. I mean, there's other
Okay,
types of
but let
wealth.
me
There's
let
other
me ask
types of
you a question,
commodities out there.
Doug Tate. Let me ask you a question. How many people come to you for advice, and you give them advice? They listen, but they don't apply it, and yet they keep
I,
coming
I,
back with the same. Hold on, but they keep coming back with the same question. I know that's happened to you before.
look, I call them an asshole because they only ask the question because they're looking for somebody to agree with. They're not looking for advice. They're looking for somebody who agrees
A
with their point
sounding
of view to
board.
begin with. Yes, they want to know that, okay, I have a female friend, love her to death. We've been friends for years, but she's an asshole. She's not asking me because she wants my advice. She's asking to find somebody who agrees with her point of view. So then, so at the end of the day,
Oh,
it's
that's
eight women that
confirmation
agree.
bias. She's looking for a
Yeah,
confirmation
yes,
bias.
exactly. She's not looking for the truth. She's not looking for something that's going to change her
She likes
behavior.
to hang
She's
out
looking
in
for
echo
something.
chambers.
Yep, yep. That's all she wants. She wants a bunch of people to say the same thing, and so which is cool. I respect that because that's the problem with our media now. People who are conservative watch Fox, people who are liberal watch CNN, and what they're doing is they're trying to find somebody that agrees with them, so they can feel justified in their own bullshit. They like the smell of their own bullshit, is what I call that. But what you're saying, what you were just asking, is that you have people that they're asking you for advice, but not to get advice, but to get confirmation. They want to feel the same. They want to feel better about their dumbass idea. And I can't always make you feel better about your dumbass idea. You knew it was dumbass. You knew it was a dumbass idea. You knew it. But just in case I can find three more people to agree with me, then I would feel secure in my idea that racism is okay, my idea that sexism is okay, my idea that this is okay. That's not okay, man. But that makes a society, though. You can make a society from doing that dumb shit.
Yeah,
I
I
promise
mean,
you can.
I mean, yes, you can. I mean, you got whole subreddits based on that. You have, Twitter groups and Facebook groups based on that.
Groups, yep,
You know what I mean.
yes,
But I mean, so
one
yeah,
hundred percent.
but you have to, dude. You got to throw that fly in the ointment. Every little bottle of ointment you pass by, put a fly in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Look, you look over that light in the darkness, and people don't recognize that sometimes that light comes in different colors. You want that white light, but the fact of the matter is, it might be red, it might be blue, it might even, and we avoid that because the idea that I've been wrong all this time. It's just like when you're in a relationship and you find out your girl's been cheating on you. So now all of a sudden you wondering like, well, every time she went outside, was she cheating? So you run back, and that's what happens is that when you find out about racism, or when you find out about this, you're like, well, damn, was they always racist? Was there always racism there? Yes, there was
yes,
racism there.
but okay, now see,
It was
now at that point, accept it for what it is, and don't turn a blind eye to it,
change.
because
Yeah, be the engine for change. Don't be the engine that keeps on course and keeps going using the racism to build yourself up. Bring me up too, or create a situation where I can bring myself up. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, don't trip me when I get there, because that's what y'all like to do. Sorry, go ahead.
it's just so crazy. Like you're talking about like racism and like perspective. I mean, when you consider the Ronald Reagan era,
Yes.
he didn't give a fuck about black people at
Nope.
all, and it was so obvious. And people, conservatives, will look back on that, gleefully, like it was like these wonder years, and I'm like, you must not have been alive at that time, and if you were on the same page racially as he was, in an ideological point of view. Just looking at the past, like with rose-colored glasses, I'm like, whoa, man, whoa, what was great about that? Who was it great for?
Hey, look at him when he was the governor of California. That's when he passed them gun laws. Do you know why? Because of Black Panther Party. Oh, before that, he had no problem with guns. But when black folks got guns, whoa, whoa, nobody should ride with a shotgun in the car. No one needs more than a shot.
Six
It's
months
funny
ago,
when
6 months ago, there was some leaked audio footage or audio recording of him speaking to, I think, somebody in his cabinet when he was a governor, and he was talking about there was some type of like international procession that came from an African country, and they were doing traditional dance, and he said he was on a hot mic saying, "Look at them dancing like a bunch of fucking monkeys." Dude, the guy was a piece of shit. You know what I mean?
but
Like,
but but, but here's the problem. Everybody back then was a piece of shit. So that doesn't exclude him. But what you don't
no,
understand is that's how people saw you. That's how people saw black people back then.
but
Even though, and
bruh,
here's the part.
but hold on, my dude. The thing is that discipline is what you do when nobody is looking.
Yes, manhood. Yes.
Right. So all that shit about like when people tell me, "Oh, that was the times," and people behave like that back then. You know what? Fuck all that. Because everybody didn't behave like that. Every white person did not behave that way back then.
Look, hey, we got to wrap this up.
Okay, not yet. Not
Um,
yet. We got about 5 more minutes, man.
you got some more? Come on in.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what I was going to say, what I was going to say is that is the era that where people should have been speaking up, and that was always my problem with this liberal conservative stuff. Liberals love to talk about racism, but they don't want to do shit about it. I hate to talk about a situation and do nothing about it. If you, talk is cheap, it's not just talk. You need to be considering coming up with a plan how to fix this. On the same token, conservatives this, conservatives that. The fact is this: you are still putting obstacles in my way. It's still impossible for me to get a business loan. It's still impossible for me. And so when they don't teach you about investments in grade school, you know why? Because they don't want you investing. Me and you learned about selling stock when we was in library class in second grade, and that's the kind of stuff that's not is not being taught. So what's being taught is stereotypes. Stereotypes are real. You stay within your stereotype. You stay within your area. Everything is fine. It's
Yeah,
like, nah,
that's
man,
true. That's a very
I'm not
good point.
afraid. Yeah, and fear is that tool that's used by the first thing you. I hate when people take sociology class because they love to hit you with that kind of crap. So first thing you learn in sociology class is religion is a tool used by the bourgeoisie to control the proletariat, right? Well, what they're really doing is using fear to control the proletariat. It's fear. Replace the word religion with fear, then you get the real rule. Because what religion is, you're afraid of going to hell. What they're using is fear. They're not using religion. They use that term religion because that's the intellectual thing. And hey, I
Listen,
use
religion are just
religion.
the clothes that they put on fear.
And yes, if, fear is what they're really using. And right now, your fear, our religion is the coronavirus, and that's the fear that they're using to control us. And once you start substituting these different words with different things, and you realize, okay, 9/11, the fear was terrorism. That's what they used to make us fear. Now this
Yes.
time in 2020, it's the coronavirus. That's what they're using. What's next? Next is going to be, I don't know. It's
You
going to
know,
be
listen, the next thing is going to be something that's heavier that puts the nails in the coffin for the end of our last bits of privacy. And ladies and gentlemen,
our rights.
what we got
Rights.
to do, what we got to do is fight back against this with words and actions. Fight back with words and actions. And we do that by being disruptive. And when you're being
Raise your
disruptive,
children. Raise
yes,
your children not to be afraid.
that's right. And also, the thing is, what you need to do is be disruptive and stick to your guns. If you're going to take the road less traveled, be ready for bumps in that road because it might be long, but it's okay. If you got moxie, if you got guts, if you know you come from strong people and you're going to hang on, you'll be fine. The road less traveled will have bumps, but you're going to be just fine when you get to the end of that road.
And don't be afraid to walk alone, because that was that gift that he told you in that poem. Your gift is being alone. Use it. Don't be afraid of it.
We out. Peace.
Holla.